Luxo, sorry.
Fabian Vogelsteller.
Fabian Vogelsteller from Luxo.
All right. I hope you can hear me. We need the picture. The picture, please. So yeah. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story. It's actually the story of the last 5 years and how it all came to be and what we are on to building. You probably all know, since the creation of ERC20, we had a lot of explosion of applications. If you look around here with all of these booths and exhibitions, pretty much almost every project is somehow rooted in tokens, you know, and the DeFi, NFTs, the ICO craze. Today it's staking and whatnot. But there's the problem that we have since the last few years that actually the fundamentals haven't really changed, right? So if we're looking at just the UX, for example, I mean, it's very minimal changes. I mean, it's better looking wallets now, but the basics of how you interact with blockchain using a private key and a public key hasn't changed. And that's kind of also the reason of, I guess, why we haven't seen a lot of users using blockchain, right? So we can just quickly check. We have a lot of users that trade, you know, that have tokens and that maybe have a wallet. But if you really look down to actually who's using the apps, you end up pretty much at a very low number. And that's probably still like quite optimistic, and maybe it's way less than that. It's like, where are the users after all of these years and, you know, trillions of dollars of market cap? And again, we are hitting here the trillions of dollars of market cap just now. And that's literally where we are at, right? So the sad truth is that no one is using blockchain. There's a lot of trading and there's a lot of funds moving, but it's barely anything like this. So given that I had some experience in the early days when I created ERC20, and then later when I created the Mist browser together with Alex in the Ethereum Foundation, basically the first wallet for Ethereum and also the first kind of way to interact with the apps, I kind of know a little bit about the UX and how hard it is to make that UX easy, or why it is so tricky to even make it easy in the first place, right? So going back, or going a few years later, in 2017, more by accident, I created or came up with a standard. And in fact, this is called ERC725. And this is funny enough, the exact standard after the NFT standard 721. And I created it back then. I came up with it at a workshop that I did. And I somehow had the feeling I should like propose this as a standard. I did that back in the day. I called it a Ethereum proxy account, as you can read there, like an account standard. It got quite popular. There was like an alliance that formed, and people said they want to use it. But I didn't really have interest to continue the project because it was just an idea, and I thought I need to put it out there, and someone will come and do something with it. A year or so later, my ex-wife and I, we came to the idea to create a blockchain. To create a blockchain for creators and normal users, lifestyle and art and music, and basically the rest of the internet. People that, you know, today use maybe YouTube or Instagram, you know, maybe they also should use blockchain. But we should make it easy. We should make it accessible. And we should make an Ethereum a programmable blockchain, but actually for everyone to use decentralization and to decentralize whatever we have. So we did that over the last few years, and the network actually started 10 months ago in May. And since then, the network is running pretty smooth. We have over 130,000 validators running the network. It's doing its thing. $25 million staked in the consensus. Yeah, it's quite decentralized. We have never run a node, a validating node in the network. So it's started by the people, run by the people. It works like Ethereum, it's generic EVM, but during this process of building all of this, we realized that ETH75 actually is really, really essential in making any of this stuff happen. So, noting that when you want to create something where normal people are able to use blockchain and where you want to have creators, right, you need an account that's not just an account, but that is a profile and that people can actually manage. So that's when my journey began to really reinvent the foundations that we need to use blockchain in an easier way. And in this process, we created over 25 standards, smart contract standards, purposefully called them Luxo standards proposals, not ERC, which is the term I coined in Ethereum, because I wanted to get out of this noise space where there's so many standard proposals and you get so many opinions and never anybody agrees to anything. So in these standards proposals, we basically reinvented the foundations that you need, right? And obviously, we learned a lot from Ethereum and all the other chains using ERC20. There's a lot of things we can improve on those. Make them more flexible in the way you can add metadata, make them more interoperable, clean up the way the function naming works, but most importantly, create your universal profile. Create the profile, the account that you use to interact with blockchain. And that account is not just some custom smart contract that we build and this is now the cool thing and hopefully it lasts 2 years and then we upgrade it and come to the next thing. No, this is built on standards. Every single piece in this account is a standard in itself that as pieced together works as a profile and works very well as a profile. So the pink part here is the metadata standards and the blue part here is basically the functions and what it has. And each of these standards work by themselves and can be also used in different contexts. So as a developer, you're probably thinking now, oh my God, if there is like this new thing and it all looks fancy and this is a new way to do something on a blockchain and Luxo, like this is what you do there, like that now requires me to change all my apps and now I need to adopt something new. And the truth is actually not. You can literally interact with the browser extension and it does all the heavy lifting for you. So you just like call request accounts, you get your account back, and instead of getting a public key back, like you do in any wallet right now, you get a smart contract address. And then you just send your transactions as usual, and the browser extension or future apps that where you manage your profile will take care of all the complexity of managing it through your profile. So as we are here at developer conference, I want to get a little bit technical and show you what is so unique about these profiles and why is it like, what's the big deal about it, right? Because smart contract accounts, we heard that before, there's wallets that are around since a few years. So why is it now different and somehow special? So number one, it's actually meant not just as a wallet, but actually as a profile. That means you can attach information, but not just a JSON file where we define this is the 5 things you can add, and that's all there is. You have an unlimited amount of information you can add because it uses ETH75Y, a generic key value store where you can attach information to, including a JSON file for your profile picture. So, and that's quite generic, so we need to define of how you make these keys look like. You know, how does these keys on the end are described and encoded and decoded. And lucky enough, there's a library that will help you with that called ETH75JS that makes it quite simple for you to retrieve this data and to store this data in the right way. But it allows for protocols now to invent new ways of how you store information at the account of the user itself, at the exact same address that the user also uses to interact with your smart contracts and to hold its assets and to do anything on chain. It can also react and be notified by new protocols, by a token or by an asset that is coming to you. And you can even delegate that part to an external contract that you can replace over time, where you can say, okay, maybe certain tokens I want to go through a community-operated whitelist, so I'm not getting spammed with like whatever, right? Or maybe I want to reroute them to my vaults that I have. Or maybe somebody invents a really cool way of use that notification system to build the next protocol that like blows everybody away. But most importantly, and I think that's the biggest problem we had over the last years, is how do I manage my account long term? How do I make sure that I still next year have that profile, right, and that account? And that's where a key manager comes into place, which is in its own standard, that allows you to have multiple devices, multiple keys, multiple external smart contract systems that can manage your profile. And this on top with a lot of permissions that you can now set on those keys and say, okay, certain profiles can, certain controller keys can maybe just operate with a certain set of smart contracts or call a certain set of functions, even allowing you now to have an app that can control your profile, and you can restrict it down to a certain set of interactions, not fearing that you'll lose control over your profile. It also obviously allows you to add recovery. People could innovate on social recovery, onto centralized recovery, whatever they want to have. But most importantly, signing with Ethereum works. That means you can literally log into websites, quite important for a profile. But you know, all the talk in account abstraction within the Ethereum community has been around gasless transactions. So how do we make it easier so that people don't need Ether to do something, right? We solved it as well. We solved it with a single function that allows anyone to make a transaction on your behalf, allowing for the opportunities to create transaction relay services. Think of like the mobile phone provider of the blockchain that allows now anyone to get you a subscription and pay for your transaction fees, and you don't even have to bother about any of this complexity anymore. You could also integrate 4337 if you want to. It's a very flexible profile, allows for everything. So that on the end creates a lot of, you know, accounts that are by default all profiles. So that makes everything a lot more human, because every interaction on chain is an account, a wallet, and a profile at the same time. So where are we now with the Luxo ecosystem? You heard 10 months ago we started a network. You probably have seen us around in conferences. You've seen our nice swag and the pink. But we also have a quite thriving community within our digital ecosystem. We in fact have even people that make like, you know, a weekly podcasts in VR where they're all like virtual figures talking about Luxo and what's going on there, making parties and everything else. Universal Profiles went live in November. The first marketplace opened just 2 months ago, beginning of January. We have now 15,000 profiles created on the Luxo network, and there's around 9,000 browser extension installations, which probably tell you the more real number of users. There's a marketplace. People have created lots of NFT collections, chill whales being one of the most popular ones. It's growing. It's like literally 2 months old, but we already have like almost $1 million traded in NFTs on that marketplace, which, by the way, the marketplace came out of a hackathon from 2 years ago. So they kept building. They launched on the profiles and the new token standards and everything. They also built a way to create your own like customized profile page, which, you know, gives you a little MySpace website where you can showcase your collections and the things that you have. But a very interesting, fascinating project that was created on Luxo is basically a fractal generated NFT, and that was created by Peter. And Peter is the lead Go Ethereum developer, the one who basically, you know, runs Geth, the most used client on Ethereum. And he had this idea about this fractal in a smart contract, and he implemented this a few years ago, I think 7 years ago actually, into the EVM. And he wanted an opportunity to make it an NFT. The tricky part about this is if you make a fractal in a smart contract, it requires a lot of gas because you need to iterate fractals to make them more and more detailed. So 3,500 iterations actually use one block of the Luxo blockchain. The crazy thing is, people iterated now these NFTs to over 60 million iterations. So that's kind of like 2 days of the Luxo blockchain for a single image to come into existence. And these images are purely on-chain and fully returned from the smart contract as an SVG. So probably the first actual real NFT art, because it can only be done in the early days of the network. Eventually, it will get so expensive to do this that you can't do it anymore, so then it becomes super rare. It currently fills the blockchain because the gas is still cheap, so people are doing this. Refining images is a big deal on Luxo right now. And then the community, talking about this, creating these collections and trading it, it's the first use case. It's obviously the simplest thing you can do with a profile, and it's by far outcasting what's possible, but it kind of shows what happens if you have actually profiles and users being profiles by default. Another interesting app is Common Ground. Think of it like Discord for Web3. They integrated universal profiles as a way to log in, and the Luxo community now kind of took over, and we have now over 70 active communities, with some having over 2,000 people, and people doing all the NFT stuff and discussing their burn picks and even trading them in there. Yeah, getting creative. So it's a young ecosystem. It's just started. The tech is ready. The tech is out there. The foundations are out there. There's a lot more tools and things that will come. But basically now it's about introducing builders to this innovation, the smart contract innovations, get them to understand that this is the tool and this is the standards and that's the account system that everybody has been waiting for and looking for since years. And it's introduced on a new chain because that's the only way you can ever make people adopt such a fundamental piece, which is not just your token improved, but it's the account itself. Like, you can never convince the existing ecosystems to adopt something like this, but you can do it on a new chain, and it also brings in a whole kind of new user and a new culture that Luxo have been literally attracting and thriving for a long time. And it probably creates then, for the first time, a true decentralized social media and a lot of possibilities that we can't envision right now, because your account is now also a profile. So let's make some cool stuff happen on profiles on blockchain. Thank you. Question time. Any questions? No? All right. The docs is what you want to check out. There's one question. I can't actually hear. Where are the standards used? So the standards actually started in 2017, the first basis. But all these standards, in order to make the profile happen, it basically evolved over the last 5 years. And it was literally just finalized in the last 6 months. But we built the transaction relay service, the browser extension, a way to create the profile, and all of these things had to be built to make not just a single standard, but a complex set of standards work that form a profile. And that's quite a challenge. It's easier to just deploy one contract, which is a token, and you send it around. Innovating on the account level, it's a bit more challenging. But now it gives you the possibilities to do things that you simply couldn't have done before. You cannot attach information to your MetaMask or even Argent wallet or any of these existing wallets. Without information on the account level, every social use case is impossible. So now you need to do some external contract that's like an NFT or whatever else But your account and your profile should be the same thing, the same contract, the same address. Why should that be separate, like into 50 pieces somewhere, right? So making this natively the same thing allows for apps that you cannot build right now in any other chain. So that's the place. Docs.luxo.tech, or go to luxo.network, click on docs, and that's where you can all dig into the deep dive in the Bible of Luxo.